Lieutenant Nathan Rowe had exactly 3 rules for surviving off-world humanitarian work. Never eat anything that glows, never assume the translator is accurate during marriage ceremonies, and never volunteer for jungle assignments. He had broken all 3 by the time the shuttle doors hissed open to the mist-choked surface of Yalathari Prime. "Welcome to another tropical hellhole," he muttered, stepping into the dense, violet-hued air. The jungle around him swayed with a lazy, alien grace, the flora pulsing faintly in sync with the planet's odd magnetic field. Bioluminescent spores drifted through the mist like sleepy fireflies on sedatives. "Radiation levels nominal," chimed the cheerful voice of the onboard AI, HALI. "Probability of being consumed by a plant is only 3%. That's a 3% improvement from Vrexia 7. HALI, shut up. Of course, Lieutenant, engaging silent judgment mode. The mission was supposed to be simple. Find the source of the distress beacon that had pinged from within a resettlement zone's radius. Yalathari Prime had suffered minor tectonic disruptions last week. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to scare the offworlders and trigger the standard humanitarian scramble. The Lural species was notoriously proud, painfully poetic, and generally allergic to outsiders. They hadn't asked for help, which meant someone really needed it. The beacon's signal led him deep into the overgrown remains of what had once been a mining outpost. Vines choked crystalline pylons. Broken structures glinted like jagged teeth from the ground. He kept the plasma pistol holstered. This was, after all, a friendly mission, which meant if he shot anything, it had better be a malfunctioning vending unit or the captain's favorite coffee dispenser. His boots crunched over brittle leaves that hissed like static, and as he stepped into the collapsed remnants of a tunnel entrance, his comm crackled. "Row here," he said. "Nathan, don't die," came Lieutenant Vesk's voice. "Command says we'll miss your sarcasm and your debts. Touching. I'll etch your name on my tombstone with a steak knife if I get swallowed by a root worm. Nah, you'll probably trip over your own ego and fall into a sinkhole." Nathan grinned despite the tension. Wouldn't be the first time. The signal grew stronger as he climbed over a heap of crumbled crystal. A translucent mineral the Lural used like humans, used concrete and questionable dietary supplements. A low sound reached his ears. Not a distress beacon's electronic whine, but something else. Sobbing. Children's voices. His hand tightened around the grip of the pistol, but he didn't draw. He ducked under a jagged beam, sliding into the tunnel, flashlight slicing through the haze. The sound grew clearer, soft crying, hushed whispers. He rounded a bend and froze. 3 Lural children, small, willowy, ears long and curved like crescent moons, huddled together behind a fallen support beam. Their eyes shimmered like liquid glass in the low light. Their robes were torn. One limped. Another clutched a glowing stone to her chest like it could banish monsters. They stared at him with the wide-eyed terror reserved for strange, loud-smelling humans wielding emergency kits and bad posture. "Hey," Nathan said gently, kneeling and activating the translator node. "I'm not here to hurt you." One of the children blinked and whispered something. The node buzzed, then translated, "Smells like iron and fruit." Nathan paused. "Fair. I've been eating dehydrated strawberry bars for a week." He scanned the structure. A secondary beam was cracked above them, creaking ominously. If it fell, it'd crush the whole pocket of air they were hiding in. "Okay, kids. You've had your fun spelunking through ancient alien death tunnels, but let's get out of here before the ceiling decides to hug us to death." One girl, the smallest, clung tighter to the glowing stone. "We can't. The ghosts are angry." Nathan blinked. Oh good, ghosts, because collapsing tunnels weren't festive enough. He carefully pulled out a collapsible brace from his pack and jammed it under the cracked beam. It groaned, held. He crawled into the space with the kids. "My name's Nathan. I'm with the Terran Relief Corps. That means I help people." "You're loud," said the oldest boy, "and your skin looks sick." "That's just what humans look like. Sorry, We evolved under a sun that hated us. He coaxed them out one by one, keeping his tone light, cracking the occasional joke about jungle fungus that tried to flirt with him on the way in. The girl with the stone was last. She hesitated, whispered something to it. "What's the stone say?" She looked up. "She says you're not very smart, but you're brave." "I get that a lot," Nathan said, usually followed by paperwork. The journey back was slow. One child rode piggyback. Another held his hand like a lifeline. The jungle whispered and rustled, but no further danger came, just mist, spores, and the unsettling sensation that the plants were eavesdropping. As the group broke the canopy line near the extraction zone, HALI's voice returned. "Lieutenant, 3 life forms detected accompanying you, all Lural juveniles. Congratulations. You are now a culturally inappropriate babysitter." "Put it on my resume," Nathan muttered. At the clearing's edge, a group of Lural stood waiting. Their robes shimmered like water in the air. In front of them was a tall woman, taller than Nathan by a head, her posture perfect, her ears elegantly arched, eyes the color of sapphire nebulae. She was silent as the children rushed into her arms, whispering in their musical language. Then she looked at Nathan. There was no gratitude in her gaze, no warmth, just a deep, analytical calm, as if she were looking through him and seeing something he hadn't noticed in himself. She stepped forward. Her voice was like wind across glass. "You retrieved my bloodlings." "I did," Nathan said, unsure whether to salute Bo or offer cookies. "You entered danger with no bond, no debt, no honor owed." "Well, someone had to," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "I mean, it wasn't a spa day, but I couldn't just leave them." The translator buzzed. Her expression didn't change. She turned, raised a hand toward the gathering Lural. "This male has fulfilled the trial of true intent. He has acted with no expectation of honor, no desire for alliance, and no knowledge of the test." Nathan blinked. "Wait, test." She turned back to him. "I am Aerolith, voice of the Sapphire Veil, and by ancient accord I name you my chosen consort." Nathan stared. "Wait, what?" "I'm sorry, you what me?" Nathan asked, eyebrows climbing high enough to qualify for low orbit. "Did you just call me your, what was the word, consort? Is that like a tour guide?" A murmur rippled through the Lural crowd. Equal parts shock, and the sort of prim, polite scandal one might hear at an alien opera when someone sits in the wrong quadrant. Aerolith remained perfectly still, as if statue mode was a built-in feature. "You have fulfilled the requirements," she said, her voice absolutely devoid of irony. "By retrieving my bloodlings with courage and no intention of gain, you have passed the binding trial. Your name will be presented to the council. Preparation for the joining ceremony begins at moon's turn." Nathan held up both hands like he was directing traffic at a cosmic accident. "Okay, whoa, hold up. I didn't even know I applied for anything. Is this like those spam emails where I inherit a space fortune from a prince if I just rescue his kids?" The translator drone buzzed politely, clearly unsure how to render sarcasm in Lural high formal. Nathan suspected it defaulted to something like squealing noises of confusion with secondary foot gestures. A tall Lural counselor stepped forward, ears twitching slightly. "Your confusion is noted and acceptable. You are human. Your culture does not value instinctive obligation in the same way." "That's a very poetic way of saying, you people are chaos monkeys with nukes," Nathan muttered. "The ritual will proceed." "What ritual? I'm not even sure I'm wearing clean socks." Aerolith tilted her head just enough to indicate minor amusement, or mild disdain. It was hard to tell with a species that measured humor in fractions of eyebrow movement. "You will be escorted to the spire. There you will be observed, educated, and evaluated. This is not yet final, but the choosing is rare. I do not make it lightly." Nathan turned to the children, who were now staring at him with an expression somewhere between awe and complete betrayal. The youngest mouthed something to the glowing stone again. It pulsed in response. "Great. I saved alien toddlers, And now I'm being drafted into marriage because I didn't let them get crushed by a ceiling. This is exactly how my uncle got married in Reno. The spire of the sapphire veil looked less like a palace and more like someone had convinced a glacier to float in midair, and then bedazzled it with stars. Nathan stood in a chamber carved from translucent crystal, glowing with faint pulses of bioluminescent threads that resembled neurons dreaming under starlight. A floating orb hovered behind him, recording his biometric data and periodically asking if he preferred soft, firm, or ceremonially neutral bedding. A humanoid assistant appeared, a Luril with a calm expression and a clipboard, which looked suspiciously like a hovering rectangle of hard light. Her name was T. Ellen, and she had the same unnervingly graceful gait as Aerolith, like gravity was a mere suggestion. "I'm not marrying anyone," Nathan said as she gestured toward a changing alcove. "The joining is not immediate," she replied. "There is an observation period and a purification sequence." "Purification? Do I need a warning for that? Should I sign a waiver?" "You will bathe in the waters of resonance. They will scan your memories and verify your intentions during the trial." Nathan groaned. "You people never heard of a background check." He was led into a room filled with a shallow pool, the water glowing with threads of psychic energy. The pool shimmered, alive with soft vibrations. A whisper echoed inside his skull before he even touched it. "You are the accidental hope, the unknowing fire." Nathan flinched. "Okay, now I feel like a cultist." The waters rose around him like silk, touching skin and memory. Images flickered, him kneeling in the tunnel, coaxing the children out, cracking dumb jokes to keep their fear at bay. The sincerity behind the ridiculousness. The waters approved. Later, draped in a Luril robe that suspiciously resembled a shower curtain stitched with moonlight, Nathan stood in front of Aerolith in a circular chamber, where glowing glyphs hovered midair like musical notation. "I still don't understand any of this," he said. "You didn't even ask if I wanted to be considered." "I observed your nature," Aerolith said. "You acted with instinct, not calculation. Among my people, that is sacred." "I also tripped twice and got bit by a plant with teeth. Should we throw those into the decision matrix too?" "The plant tested your reflexes. It is a traditional part of the trial site." "You trained the plant." "No, it is just always hungry." A brief silence passed, filled only with the gentle hum of floating symbols. "I'm not some perfect hero," Nathan said at last. "I'm just a guy. I try not to suck, that's it." "That is the foundation of all virtue," Aerolith replied. "To act rightly when no one watches, to rescue without reward, to protect without claim." Nathan sighed. "You know, in human culture, marriage usually starts with a few dates and ends with joint taxes and watching each other slowly fall apart over decades." "We bond through essence, not decay," she said. "We share memory and build legacy." "That sounds both beautiful and terrifying." "Correct." A new voice cut in, T. Ellen again, now standing with what looked like an announcement scroll. "Council has approved extended evaluation period. Human subject will remain at the spire for further testing of compatibility and diplomatic potential." Nathan turned. "That's code for, we'll see if you two can hold a conversation without one of you fleeing the planet, right?" "Roughly translated," she said. "Also, you are assigned to care of the bloodlings for the duration." "I get kids and homework." "They adore you. One now thinks your hair contains psychic energy. Please do not correct her." That night, as Nathan tried to figure out how to sleep in a bed shaped like an art installation, one of the children snuck into his room. "Why do you talk so strange?" the boy asked. "It's called sarcasm. It's like humor's sharp cousin who didn't get hugged enough." "Oh." A pause. "Will you leave?" Nathan stared at the strange ceiling above him, glowing faintly with constellations he couldn't name. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I didn't sign up for this. I was just trying to help." "You did help." "Yeah," Nathan said, eyes closing. "That's the problem." The child left quietly. Somewhere in the spire, Aerolith stood at a balcony overlooking the jungle, her long ears twitching in the breeze. She said nothing, but her thoughts echoed gently through the resonance crystals lining the tower. Perhaps he was not chosen by the trial. Perhaps the trial was chosen by him. Nathan discovered three things the next morning. The robe he'd slept in had fused with the bed's biomaterial, and now refused to let go of him without a negotiation. The Lural breakfast routine involved inhaling the scent of hovering soup rather than consuming it. And somewhere in the spire, one of the children had programmed his translator drone to refer to him exclusively as Mate Candidate Meatbag. "You think this is funny?" Nathan asked the drone as it followed him through the corridor like a judgmental soap bubble. "Affirmative, Mate Candidate Meatbag." "Great. Just wait until I upgrade your humor protocols to rerun slapstick Earth sitcoms on loop. You'll cry oil. You already talk like one," muttered a familiar small voice behind him. Yala, the youngest of the three bloodlings, had appeared from what Nathan could only assume was a hallway dimension dedicated solely to child-sized ambushes. She was carrying a crystalline carving shaped vaguely like a human face, except the ears were tripled and the teeth were disturbingly accurate. "I made you," she announced. Nathan squinted. "That's either the sweetest thing anyone's done for me or a threat. Can't quite tell. She says you will be wise and very loud." "Ah, so she's seen me in meetings." Yala nodded solemnly, then scampered off again, the little stone idol leaving faint glowing trails in the air behind her like an accidental GPS system. Nathan resumed walking toward the education chamber, which, despite the name, was less of a school and more of an arena where ancient Lural traditions were gently hurled at him like softly glowing projectiles. Today's lesson included social bonding protocols, conflict resolution through metaphor, and an unsettling deep dive into the Lural courting ritual known as a Larinkar, which, according to the scroll, began with sharing a fragment of soul during mutual submersion in sound-light resonance. He leaned over to T. Ellen, who was reading the scroll aloud in a tone that suggested she had once taught ritual diplomacy to comets. "So what happens if I fail to properly share my soul?" "You are politely rejected and symbolically disintegrated. The ritual flame is purely metaphoric, of course." Nathan stared at her. "Of course, that's very reassuring. Also, in some ancient dialects, the flame is literal. But only during equinox trials." That evening, Aerolith invited him to the Garden of Memory, a bioluminescent spiral grove that pulsed with slow, thoughtful colors like a planet trying to dream. They walked in silence, which Nathan broke approximately every 30 seconds with an ill-advised observation. "So, do you guys grow these trees, or do they just show up whenever someone experiences emotional growth?" "They are seeded by ancestral harmonics." "Right, of course, not weird at all." She gave him a sidelong glance. "You are uncomfortable. I'm surrounded by glowing moss that's judging me. I'm dressed like a mystical curtain, and I'm on a date that might involve soul combustion. So yeah, I'm mildly uncomfortable. We are not yet joined. Are we at least officially dating? In your terms, perhaps, though there is less focus on exclusive dining arrangements and more on psionic compatibility." Nathan exhaled. "So I shouldn't expect dinner and a movie." "Dinner is symbolic ingestion. Movie is memory projection. I have selected 3 of my childhood impressions for sharing. Do any of them involve you falling off something or getting into mischief? Because human kids bond over embarrassment." "No," she said flatly. "I was very dignified." He muttered, "Of course you were." They arrived at a crystalline bench that hummed under his weight. Aerolith faced him, calm and unreadable. She held out a hand, fingers long and silver-tipped. "May I access your surface thoughts?" Nathan hesitated. "This isn't going to erase my love for bad action movies, is it?" She raised a brow. "It may strengthen your appreciation for sincerity." "Oh no, not sincerity." He reached out and her touch was cool like moonlight on metal. A flicker passed through him, not invasive, not probing. Just a quiet awareness of being seen. His memories rose unbidden, The children's faces, the fear in that tunnel, his ridiculous running commentary as he tried to calm them. You feared for them, Aerolith said softly. But not for yourself. That's kind of how I'm wired, he said. I worry about me after everything else exploded. She nodded slowly. Your mind is cluttered, but your intentions are crystalline. Please don't tell the council I'm emotionally crystalline. I'll never hear the end of it from the crew. I will tell them you are chaos-born and irony-shaped. That's worse. They sat in silence for a while, and for the first time, Nathan didn't feel like he had to fill it. Eventually, he asked, do your people actually expect this to work? Some hope, others resist, most observe. And you? I choose to wait, but I do not regret the choosing. He smirked. You're aware I'm still technically single, sarcastic, and capable of accidentally causing diplomatic incidents with my face. Yes. And you still picked me. Yes. You Lurel are really something. We have our ways. Nathan leaned back and stared at the swirling lights above. Well, he said, as long as no one makes me sing in public or wear feathers, I might just survive this. Aerolith was silent for a moment. There is a feathered cloak for the moon joining right. Nathan closed his eyes. I knew it. Nathan knew something was wrong the moment he entered the spire's central hall and saw every single Lurel in ceremonial robes, pretending not to stare at him. That was never a good sign, especially when those robes shimmered with the same anxious shade the resonance crystals turned during minor political catastrophes. Ellen met him near the floating dais. Her hands folded so tightly he thought she might actually bend her own fingers into new species. You are summoned to the Chamber of Recourse, she said without preamble. That sounds delightfully vague and mildly threatening. There has been contestation. I'm guessing this isn't about my habit of talking to the furniture. Unlikely, though the dining table did file a complaint. Nathan sighed and followed her past hovering glyph guards, Lurel security drones that looked like angry punctuation marks, and had all the warmth of a particularly vengeful semicolon. The Chamber of Recourse wasn't a courtroom. It was more like a high-stakes diplomatic amphitheater where verbal duels replaced plasma weapons, and metaphors could wound more than bullets. Aerolith stood in the center of the room, spine straight, chin lifted, expression carved from sheer defiance. Across from her, a circle of traditionalist elders, 3 tall Lurel whose ears were adorned with lineage rings older than some Earth continents, watched Nathan like he was an enthusiastic raccoon someone had mistakenly invited to a royal wedding. This is a challenge of union, the elder in the middle announced. The claim has been made, the trial fulfilled, but the legacy is questioned. Wait, Nathan said. Am I being sued for accidental fiancéing? Aerolith's voice was sharp. They say a human cannot carry resonance, that no offworlder can truly bond without corruption. Nathan raised a hand. Okay, well, I brushed my teeth today and only mildly insulted your meditation pond. That's not full corruption. The oldest elder's ears twitched. Your levity is ill-placed. That's fair. It's a coping mechanism. I was also raised in a culture where humor is used to mask deep existential dread. Ellen gave him a small nod of approval. That, or she was imagining a future where he didn't spontaneously self-destruct under Lurel legal pressure. Hard to tell. A holographic display activated in the air. Images from the trial tunnel, Nathan with the children, patching wounds, cracking jokes, coaxing them through. His words, translated into the Lurel emotional lexicon, echoed in the air with surprising weight. The youngest elder narrowed his eyes. He mocked the sacred vines of renewal. I yelled at them for trying to eat my boots, which, if you think about it, is a form of ecological conversation. The ritual flame will decide. Nathan glanced at Aerolith. She didn't speak, but her gaze held the calm of a loaded railgun with moral conviction. Ellen leaned over. They are invoking trial by remembrance. Is that like a PowerPoint presentation but psychic? You must relive the event. Fully, without filter. They will see your motive. If it is deemed impure, the claim is void. And if they find a memory of me, tripping over a root and screaming like a malfunctioning goat, they will understand you are authentic. Great. Authentic is code for disaster with a heart, isn't it? A crystal prism floated toward him and pulsed softly. Nathan took a breath, reached out and let it touch his temple. He was back in the tunnel, not watching in it. The heat, the weight of the cracked beam overhead, the hiss of spores, the ache in his knees as he crouched beside the smallest child. Her breath trembling, the feeling in his chest, not heroism, not glory, just fear for them. I didn't want them to die scared, he said aloud. That's it. I didn't want them to die scared. No one deserves that. The projection faded. Silence followed, heavy and uncertain. Then the crystal changed color, pure white. Tielin's eyes widened. That's a resonance of true impulse. The middle elder frowned. He did not seek advantage. He sought decency, Aerolith said, and that is the rarest thing in any quadrant. The room vibrated faintly with agreement. Even the floating punctuation guard seemed less menacing. Very well, said the eldest. The claim stands. Nathan exhaled. Does this mean I don't get ceremonially vaporized? There was never a vaporization clause, Tielin said. I don't believe you. The celebration was immediate, chaotic, and deeply confusing. Nathan was led to a central platform in the spire's sky chamber, where light and gravity danced like two drunks doing interpretive ballet. The children reappeared, tossing glowing leaves into the air. Aerolith handed him a carved token, half crystal, half living fiber. This binds us until the moon turn, she said. What happens at the moon turn? We decide if the binding becomes permanent. So this is like cosmic dating with paperwork. Essentially, the children grabbed his hands before he could process further, and dragged him into a ritual spiral that apparently represented the journey of chaos into order. Nathan mostly represented the chaos. He stepped on one of his own sandals, nearly knocked over a floating lantern, and tripped into the very middle of a bonding spiral with all the grace of a duck landing in zero gravity. You're doing it wrong, one of the bloodlings whispered. Consistently, Nathan whispered back. By the time the ceremonial music ended, a mix of lural chimes, wind harmonics, and what sounded suspiciously like space didgeridoo, he was lying on his back, staring up at the stars. Aerolith sat beside him. You are learning. Am I? You danced poorly, but you stayed in the spiral. Nathan smiled. That's kind of my thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I show up. A pause. You are not what I expected. Yeah, he said, me either. He turned his head and met her eyes. I'm not promising forever, he said, but I'll walk to moon turn with you. Aerolith nodded. That is enough. Nathan stood on the edge of the spire's high balcony, staring at the horizon where two moons hovered like smug witnesses to his impending existential crisis. The joining ceremony was 20 minutes away. He was wearing a robe woven from ceremonial feathers, half of which were molting aggressively. A tiny crystal spider was affixing a final gemstone to his collar, while whispering things that sounded suspiciously like fashion insults. I look like a cosmic bird exploded on me, he muttered. You look acceptable, said Tielin from behind him. The molting is symbolic, shedding past identities. It's also itchy. That too is symbolic. He scratched his neck. You people have a symbolic answer for everything. That is how we survive ourselves. Nathan sighed and adjusted his collar. So this is it, moon turn, decision time. Tielin handed him a small glowing disc. If you do not place this in the ritual matrix, the binding dissolves. No shame, no consequence, only memory. Only memory, he repeated. You make it sound so poetic. Poetry is how we process failure. Nathan laughed. Humans just yell into pillows and eat frozen desserts. You could try both. He turned to her, a question tugging at his thoughts. Why did Aerolith really choose me? Tielin paused. Because when everything was chaos, you acted like it mattered. You didn't need prophecy. You didn't even need context. You just were. That is rare, Nathan Rowe. He stared at the disc in his hand. I wasn't trying to be special. I was just me. And that was enough. The chamber shimmered with ambient resonance, pulsing in harmony with the moons. Hundreds of Lurel gathered in solemn stillness, though one child in the back was enthusiastically waving a homemade banner that read, Metemiatibag. In slightly wobbly glyphs, Nathan gave a shaky wave back. Aerolith stood at the center of the ritual circle, her expression unreadable. The crystal matrix floated between them, 3 concentric rings of light awaiting activation. Nathan stepped into the circle. A hush fell. He stared at Aerolith. "Before we do this, I need to say something that probably isn't regulation." She nodded once. "Speak your disorder. Your world makes no sense to me. Your traditions, your psychic libraries, your deeply judgmental furniture, none of it. But the way you look at me, like I'm not just some noisy species trying to find its place in the stars, that I might belong somewhere with someone. That's starting to make sense." He held up the disc. "I didn't mean to fall into your life, but I'm not falling out of it." A quiet ripple of energy passed through the crowd. Aerolith stepped forward. "You are chaos-made, but constant. That is what I have seen, what I have chosen." Nathan placed the disc into the center ring. Aerolith did the same. The rings spun, merged, and released a quiet pulse of light that danced up into the sky, splitting and reforming into a symbol, a new bond, etched in the language of resonance. The joining was complete. There was no cheering, only silence, soft and full. And then a quiet melody began, children humming, then elders joining in, until the chamber was alive with sound, not music exactly, but memory made audible. The following week was filled with diplomatic visits, celebration feasts that involved eating sound. Nathan still wasn't sure how that worked. And being fitted for ambassadorial robes that looked like someone had skinned a nebula. Nathan accepted his new role with all the dignity he could muster, which wasn't much. He made 3 minor diplomatic errors, one of which involved accidentally complimenting someone's earlobes as battle-worthy, and another that nearly turned into an interspecies staring contest. But he was learning. He took time with the children, who now followed him around like mini bodyguards. He sparred with language tutors. He even stopped threatening to reprogram the furniture. He asked Aerolith once, late at night, why she'd really trusted him. "You remind me of what my people lost," she said, "and what we still might become." He grinned. "So I'm a walking cultural reset button." "You are a challenge," she replied, "but one I welcome." When a delegation from the Galactic Concord arrived to formally recognize the Union, Nathan stood beside Aerolith, not as an outsider but as a symbol. A human. A chaos being. And a consort. He shook hands with admirals, diplomats, and one very confused reporter who asked how he'd managed to secure the hand of one of the most powerful Lurel in the quadrant.